Don't get any nuttall's in the valley, but we do get a few Pugilatensis coming down. But the overwhelming number are the Gambel's race. Then you go back to the east, and then you get Lucafreeze, which is the dominant race of the white-crowned sparrow. So it's a lot of fun. Is this working now? Oh, hello, Zoom people. We're back in business again here. Yeah, okay. All right. So this meeting will now adjourn at 10 o'clock tonight. So here we go. All right. Let's take another look here and see what we can do. Okay. Is this not? Oh, I got to go back to print.
He's not able to advance the slides because it's not in. We're not back in PowerPoint.
Next slide.
Oh.
Oh, this is not the.
Hey,
But it's not connected. So you can do it this way, but I don't know why it's not.
I can't. Let's see. There.
Did that work?
I think that worked.
Try again.
I'll go backwards and then I'll go forward. It's working. Ah, great. I was on a Christmas count once and someone was reporting this bird. They were taking all the notes and so forth. This said to his sons that were with him, well, these are the females. No. These are the immature white-crowned sparrows. And I didn't know what to say to the fellow because he was a university instructor and thought he knew something about birds, but he was telling his children that these were the females. But anyway, this is not a juvenile. The juveniles, remember, will be streaked. And so this is an immature white-crowned sparrow that we have here. And I think we'll just move on to the next bird here. So we keep going. I have not seen one of these yet this year, and I am really wanting for that. I love this particular sparrow. I think many of you can recognize it. I try to give you a chance to idea it for yourself before we move on to the next one. I think this is labeled for you. Yeah, this is a white-throated sparrow. I'd like to know more about birds than just what they are. I'd like to know a little bit about natural history, what's happening to them, all that sort of thing. I've been doing breeding bird surveys for 46 years, I guess it was. And in that period of time, actually it's 50 years, the data says that white-throated sparrows have declined by 63%. That means that for every 8 white-throated sparrows I could see, 50 years ago, so to speak, there's only 3 left to look at. And that's a sobering thought to me because this is just an adorable sparrow. And probably many of you already know the song, oh, Sam Peabody, or my wife's Canadian, so it's, oh, Canada, 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 that sort of thing. It's great. Now, a lot of people refer to our sparrows as LBJs, little brown jobs. But, get a good pair of binoculars, a great on the scope, and you'll see that some of these birds are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, every feather seems to be immaculately placed. The birds have so much snap to them when you look at them this way. Sometimes you just see that little brown thing disappear into a bush, but boy, if you get it to perch out like this, and of course we're looking at a Lincoln sparrow. All right, raises that little crest for us there, and always has that little buffy wash across the breast, that sort of thing. We'll talk more about that later here. Now, moving on, the sparrows that we have that come down to winter with us here. Here's one familiar one that you might also have in your backyard. And again, it's nice to know something about natural history of these birds besides, well, I know what this is. This is a golden-crowned sparrow. But did you know that these guys really like to chew on the grass? You find them often eating grass. Now, all these sparrows are seed eaters, but given the size of the bill and so forth, certainly not like a flycatcher's bill or, take a hummingbird or something like that. The bill has a function, and it's to crack seeds. But this golden-crowned sparrow here even shows the telltale evidence of taking in a lot of grass. So it's a little bit stained. And I thought, well, gee, I could Photoshop that out, couldn't I? But oh no, we got to talk about natural history here. So when you see a golden crowned sparrow, you'll probably see it out there in a grassy area, and it'll be chewing on some grass, I bet you. And the white crowned sparrows that you're looking at are going to be more in the weedy areas where there are seeds. So keep that in mind. All right. Now, I was up in Alaska this past June, and I was amazed to see what some of these golden crowned sparrows do. I am up above the Arctic Circle. I'm up past Nome, up on the Cougar Rock Road, way, way up there. And this is about the middle of June, maybe it's about June 12th, I guess. And the pussy willows are just coming out. And what's singing from these pussy willows? But these lovely golden crowned sparrows. So that's really cool, I think, to think that a bird can go way up there where the grizzly bears are and all that. What a change from our suburban yards around here. So golden crowned sparrows in Alaska breeding. Now, sometimes when you go up into the Sierra, you'll be able to enjoy this bird, and they seem relatively calm, or relatively common, I should say. And again, I'd like to give you a chance to mull it over in your mind, think what that is going to be, but if you will know it, and of course, you guessed it right, green-tailed towhee. Green-tailed towhees are, you know, you go to the mountains and you kind of hope to see them and you plan to see them, that sort of thing. They do start making you get excited, though, when you see them in your backyard down around here. Then everybody wants to come over and look at your at your green-tailed towhee, don't they? So some birds have that rarity component to them, location, so to speak, that really makes sparrow watching pretty interesting at times. But here's another one coming up. And if this pops up in your backyard, again, you're pretty excited about this bird because it's come a long ways to visit you. It's come all the way down from maybe Hudson Bay or northern Canada, that sort of thing. And you're looking, of course, at a Harris sparrow. Here's the adult looking like this. The adult is a big sparrow, and it has a lovely, lovely song. And if you go up to a place like Churchill, Manitoba, you can see them there. But in the wintertime, Harrison sparrows are largely east of the Rockies, places like Oklahoma, Nebraska, places like that. But we get a few here in California too, and it's always a treat for us. So I've always noticed physicians and doctors of physicians like to bird a lot. I see a lot of them sometimes. In fact, one day I was going up with I had 3 passengers in my car. We were driving up to Calusa National Wildlife Refuge, and I had 3 physicians, and they all were proctologists. Well, I thought we'd be talking, you know, about birds and everything as we go up. We're going to see some, you know, maybe we'll see some Ross's geese. Oh no, the conversation morphed pretty quickly into shop. They started talking about shop, and so I kind of started listening a little bit, and it was kind of entertaining and got to be pretty informative. And then I learned there were uses for a light bulb I'd never figured out before. Wow. So these proctologists had a lot of experience there. So it was quite a time with them. But they could identify this bird as there it is. Did you get it right? Black-throated sparrow. This is a juvenile. This bird was quite a surprise because it was not in the habitat you normally see it. It was clear up in Humboldt County, not far from the coast itself. Not the habitat you expect to find a black-throated sparrow. Well, what were some clues for it? Well, you know, if you look at the bill, you look at the fact that it's got some nice bright superciliary, so to speak. You just get a feeling for it after a while that it might maybe morph into this kind of bird. There it is, black-throated sparrow. Those adults are just gorgeous, gorgeous birds. So when you're down in Arizona and so forth, this is a pretty common bird to see. But when you're up here in California, this far north, it's really a delight to see. So sparrows can really just, you know, make your day, really. Well, many times when I give programs to Central Valley Bird Club or to Western Field Ornithologist, I have a little quiz session where I go through a number of birds, and a panel goes through and identifies them. Slowly, the audience tries to get involved and figure out what it might be, and then they unleash the secrets of identifying the bird little by little. And here's one of the birds that we often use. And they said, what kind of sparrow is this? But on second look, you say, do sparrows really have that kind of a sharp bill like that? No. Then someone's got it out there. What is it? A female red-winged blackbird. Yes, female red-winged blackbird. And it's a lot smaller than the males. People sometimes are seeing all the gorgeous red-winged blackbirds out there and overlooking the more demure female red-wings like this. But this coming spring, you'll probably be seeing red-wings going through first, all the males going through first, maybe by 2 or 3 weeks, and then later on, here will come all the females. The red-wings get up there early to get on territories and start calling and so forth, and the females would come in. But yeah, this is often mistaken for a sparrow there. That thin bill, that sharp bill, is used for gaping. They can stick that bill into a hollow stem and open it up with the bill. Very few birds can do that, so that's why some of these icterids are so successful in doing that. They exploit a food source that other birds can't get at with that gaping they have. So there's the female we were talking about. Here's another bird that sometimes gives people pause. And if you're looking at this bird, you wonder, well, I thought sparrows hopped. And this bird is not hopping. This bird is walking, walk, walk, walk. And then, of course, it has a pretty thin bill, as you see. And it's got the colorations of a sparrow, but something's wrong with that bill and the fact that it walks. It doesn't hop like sparrows do. And so a large proportion of these birds in North America do winter here in California. So you've probably all seen them. And of course, you know that we're talking about American pipit. I see lots of eyes light up out there. People, I got that one too. You know, that's good. All right. Now, in getting to know birds better and to be better at sparrow identification, it really helps you to understand status and distribution. Now, the monsoons start in Arizona about mid-July or so. And if you're going down to July down to Arizona in July, just to see how the hummingbirds that come up from Mexico and so forth and enjoy these special birds, sulfur-bellied flycatchers, all that stuff, you might say, what kind of sparrows I'm going to see in July? Well, looking at this chart right here, you're not going to see a lot of sparrows, are you? If you want to see sparrows in Arizona, go down in the wintertime. That's where you're going to see a lot of different sparrows. So understanding something about where sparrows are occurring times a year and so forth is a big help. So whenever going to a strange place and they have, like even on Merlin, you can find these annotated checklists, so to speak, and find out the frequency and the rarity and so forth of these birds. Very helpful in getting to know your sparrows better. You know what to expect. Also, another thing that helps you to become a better person at identifying sparrows is to understand and think about habitats. You look at a field like this and you think, what sparrows might be out there? And you think, well, a lot of grassland there and everything like that. So pretty soon you start thinking about, what could possibly be out there? How about this bird right here? And indeed, if you guess that it's a savanna sparrow, you are correct. Savanna sparrows like these kind of grasslands, but if you think about the way we spell savanna right here, that's not how you spell the grassland savanna. The first specimen of this species was taken in Savannah, Georgia. So that's where the H comes from, okay? And these guys you can flush them and they'll jump up on a stalk or on a fence and something like that and look back at you. So they're very obliging that way. Other sparrows aren't quite so nice. This next slide right here is a bird that you would not expect to find out in that grassland area. That It looks pretty dry. Those xeric conditions right there, we have a different kind of bird. So knowing your habitats and where these birds are will help you quite a bit and give you a chance to think this one through. And I hope you got it. We don't get a lot of these around here, unfortunately. I get lots in Montana where this picture was taken. But did you get it right here? Vesper sparrow. Nice little eye ring. You get that little chestnut. Whoops, didn't do that right. There's a little chestnut on the upper wing covers there that you can see as well. White outer tail feathers when they fly. Fine streaking on it. It's a lovely sparrow and a lovely, lovely song. Vesper sparrow because of the way it sings, you know, in the evening particularly, when it was named for that. So, nice bird. Not all the sparrows are as obliging though as savanna sparrows. Some of them, Ammodramus sparrows like this one right here, they see you and they scuttle into the grass and hide. And there are a number of sparrows that do that. So you have to understand, and it's a clue as to what it might be. This one you can probably figure out, I hope. This is a grasshopper sparrow, yeah. The best time to photograph a grasshopper sparrow, though, is not in the winter months. It's in the spring when they start to sing. And then because the hormones are raging, they do all these crazy things and will stand out there on fence wire and sing for you while you photograph them. Very obliging that way. All right. Well, another thing that helps us in identifying birds is to understand the habitats. And like we talked about the grasslands here, you look at this particular habitat shot, and you start thinking something different than we did about the savanna sparrow. What might we find in a nice little riparian area like this? Well, some of you are thinking it through already. I know you think, well, maybe you get this bird right here, and certainly you would get the song sparrow. And another possibility in that, particularly here in the valley in the wintertime, that sort of thing, you might get Lincoln sparrow. Those two would be birds you might expect in that. Certainly not Vesper sparrows, things like that. So they look a little bit alike, you think, but there are some real differences. People might refer to these as little as LBJs and so forth, but there are some distinct differences that we'll see here. First of all, notice that the streaking on the breast is different on both. The Lincoln sparrow has these really fine streaks, and the song sparrow has really more thick streaks on the breast, as you see there. So that's one of the marks that we use immediately on that. They fly differently too. Song sparrow will pump its tail and everything when it flies. But and then head shape. These Lincoln sparrows often raise the crest like they're kind of irritated. They'll raise up their crest feathers quite a bit. So often peak, like it says here, and song sparrow keeps it flatter. So that's another thing that'll help you a bit on those. And then the last thing I want to mention here is the mallards that we have. Lincoln's is quite buffy, and song sparrow is more of a variable one, but that buffy mallard on the Lincoln's is a helpful mark as well. All right. But as you travel around the country, oh yeah, here's the superciliums too, that we can talk about, that eye line, so to speak, very gray, and gray nape on the Lincoln sparrow you can see there. Some of the books are very good in having these little arrows that point to these things, and you can study your guides and learn a lot from that. But beware, song sparrows, I think there's maybe 20 some odd races or subspecies of song sparrow. And so if you do some traveling, other parts of the country, like a lot of us go to places like Arizona to see specialty bird strogans, etc. Down in Arizona, your sparrow won't look the same. It might look more like this right here. If you went up to Alaska, you'd see a big dark sparrow, quite different and robust, different than this. But so be aware of that. And but overall, the patterns will be the same. It'll just be different colorations and so forth. Some will be browner, some will be lighter, and so on. But have the shapes and so forth. And the shape can get you, whoops, what happened there? That is interesting here. And let me back this up one more here. Wow, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? This says that shape can get you to the right genus, all right? shape can get you to the right genus, and one of the genuses of the sparrow family is Spizella. Okay, and Spizella has 5 different sparrows in that genus, and let's see how this goes here. Now that you can see small bills and long tail. Okay, keep that in mind. Small bills, long tail. Okay, secondly, streaking on the crown, right? And here's some practice at that now. So here we have a sparrow. Certainly it has a long tail. We see that it has a fairly small bill, and we can see that it's quite streaked on the crown. All right. These are kind of fun birds to work with, and as you try to figure this out, other little clues will help you too as to the type of habitat it's in, the type of bush it might be in. Here's another shot of it. There you are. It's on a big tooth sagebrush there that you have there, right in Tata. And here's their brewer's sparrow. Not real common around here, but if you do some birding up in Nevada and up in other places in the mountains, you can certainly see brewer's sparrows there. We'll move on to another one we have here, and another Spizella that we have here. Again, long tail, fairly small, rather petite bill that we have there. This time we see that it has a very pronounced supercilium, a very bold cheek patch, and you're going to get a nice median crown stripe on it. And that's your clay-colored sparrow that we have here. So some of these characters really will help you a great deal. And another Spizella that we have, and one that now we have more commonly around here, that you undoubtedly have seen, many of you, is the chipping sparrow. And the breeding plumage is unmistakable with that nice rufous crown and so forth. And then notice that you have that lateral eye streak that goes right through the eye. That dark streak there, the lateral eye streak, really is quite nice, and the dark bill. But again, this Spizella has a little bit of a grayish collar. We call them that we've been seeing so far. Longish tail and a fairly small bill. Chipping sparrows now we'll show you some different things in the wintertime. It won't look like this at all. It's going to look more like this, more faded out, so to speak. Now the crown is more streaked, and the bill has gone from black back to a basic color here. Remember, it was black, but now it's to a more of an orangish yellow color again. Notice this is an unstreaked sparrow right here that we're looking at. You know, some of these sparrows have streaking, like song sparrows, Lincoln sparrows, vesper sparrows, and some of them have no streaking. And so here we have this chipper that looks quite nice, but now notice that it has that dark line in front of the eye. That's a real good mark on it. Excuse me. Good mark to distinguish it from the other sparrows we're looking at, the brewers and the clay color. And then in the fall, we look for this bird right here. This is the juvenile chipping sparrow, still streaked, so it really throws you for a loop at first, but it has that dark lore that we can see right there, right there. That's really a good mark. And that'll distinguish it from the clay color or from the brewers, because those three can look pretty similar in the fall. But this is a fail-safe mark right there. And these guys will hold the juvenile streaking much longer than the other two. You can see the streaking way into October on the chipping sparrow. So as we take a look at these things from what we've learned so far tonight, hopefully we've learned that knowing something about distribution, status, and things like that is very helpful. Now we have a quiz for you. So does this bird jump out at you or not? And the thing I know that when I go, oh, water, thank you. Great service here. Look at that. It's not wine, but It'll work. So you look at this bird, and remember that when you go birding, you know what the calendar date is, for one thing. You know where you are, you know what kind of land you're, what, where you're at, put it that way. You know the geographical spot you are, and you know the season of the year. That makes it a lot easier. So I don't know if you've figured this bird out yet or not, but if I were to tell you that you're up in Marin County right now, okay, you're walking down the trail to Limantour Estuary, and you see that the month is early September, and now you know what it is, I hope. And it is a white-crowned sparrow, a juve with all the streaking. I hope we got that right. I know some of you did. But in all we've done so far tonight, we have still left out the biggest clue to identifying these birds, and that is song. And that's why we brought along Ed here to help us with song. So Ed, take her over from here.
So the thing that makes sparrows as a family really remarkable is the tremendous variety of their song. There are many different aspects of bird song that you could study, and you can find somewhere in the sparrow family an example or two of whatever it is you want to study because of this incredible variety. So what am I talking about? Tremendous variety in the quality of the song, in the size of the repertoire, how many different songs that an individual can sing, how they compose their songs, how they choose to deliver them when they're singing. And you're even going to see at least one example of a sparrow that actually imitates other birds. Not common among sparrows, but there's at least one that's kind of famous for that. And then I will promise you at the very end or near the end, we're going to talk a little magic, in particular the magic that birds can do with their syrinx. More about that later. So what am I talking about with quality? This is kind of a human construct, but what I'm talking about is that some sparrow songs seem very musical, like this white-throated sparrow song. Can folks hear that? Yeah. Okay, good. So that was the little maize, put on your tea kettle, or oh, Canada, Canada, however you want to use the mnemonic. So just a really pretty little song. Another example is, and I think both Ed and I think this is our favorite sparrow song of all, and maybe our favorite sparrow, Lincoln Sparrow song. An interesting little song. It's especially kind of precious because you say here in California, if you want to hear that song, you're not going to hear it in the winter. We've got lots of Lincoln sparrows, but they do not sing in the winter. You have to go up and find a beautiful meadow in the Sierra, and then you'll get to hear that song. Special, special song. Sweet little song of the American tree sparrow. Simple little song, but really sweet. And there are a lot of other sparrows whose songs we would call decidedly unmusical, like grasshopper sparrow. Now, I'm going to ask folks, how many people could hear that? Yeah. I made this recording in Sacramento County about 2.5 years ago. I could hear that bird just fine then. And now I can't. It's about 8,000 hertz. And so most of the people who raised their hands in the audience were women, and generally women keep their hearing longer than men. But it's just a simple little buzz. I can hear this lowest pitch note right there. Oh, I should say, I'm sorry. For the sake of people who aren't used to looking at these spectrograms, because you're going to see a lot, let me just point out a couple of things here. So the way this works, it's kind of like a musical staff. So this axis is pitch. So higher pitch sounds up here, lower pitch sounds down here, and this axis is time. So again, just like if you're reading music, pitch along this axis, time along this axis, okay? Here's another song that I think most people would describe as just noise. This is the clay-colored sparrow song. It's the little noisy buzz. There's also, they can kind of conjure a different sort of a mood. Like I find that the fox sparrow song, it just seems happy. I mean, it makes me smile when I go up in the mountains and I hear a fox sparrow sing. It sounds like they're happy. Little bouncy, jaunty song. And some seem kind of sad. And Ed mentioned this, the Vesper sparrow. Listen, especially this first few notes, they seem kind of plaintive. A distinctive way to identify that song. Cool little song. And then golden crowned sparrow. You saw the example of these birds breeding up in Alaska. And this is the kind of the classic, oh, dear me, that we can hear down here in the winter. Oh, dear me. Now, one of the things interesting about birdsong, and some of sparrows in particular, is that if you go to different parts of their range, you'll hear some very different songs. And even if they're the same subspecies. So for instance, golden crowned sparrow, if you heard I don't have a recording right here with me, but if you heard that golden crowned sparrow that Ed showed up and Noam singing, a very different song. You kind of recognize it as a golden crowned sparrow song, but it sounds very different. And each little region will have a slightly different song that they sing. There's also tremendous variety in the length of the song. So most of the songs are just a few seconds long. Some are really short, like the spotted towhee. That's it. That's his song. That's all there is. Less than a second. Most of them are kind of medium length, a few seconds, like this black-throated sparrow. You saw a picture earlier. Great little ringing song you can hear in the desert. And some of them are really, really long. And I think the champion among sparrows, maybe one of the champions among almost any bird, is, you've already guessed it, brewer's sparrow. And this isn't even the longest example I could have chosen. On and on and on. Find yourself asking, is that bird ever going to stop and take a breath? There's also a lot of variation in the complexity of the song. Many of the sparrow songs are very simple, like this little dark-eyed junco trill, a simple little ringing trill. Some of them are very complex. This is one of my favorite. This is good Montana bird, so it's one that Ed Harper gets to see and hear quite often. Lark bunting. Really complex series of notes all put together. And this bird does even more. This bird, you not only get a song, but you get a show, because they typically sing in the air and they put on a show. For this exact bird, which I must have stood there recording for 45 minutes in Montana at least, it would continually start perched on a fence and it would be silent. It would fly up in the air, still silent, and then it would kind of parachute back down to the fence singing this song. So just imagine, close your eyes, imagine there's this sort of beautiful black and white bird, flies up in the air, and then as it's descending to the back to the fence, it just lets this whole song just flow right out. This bird did this over and over and over again. It was just a wonderful day. Okay, in case you thought that this was just going to be a light, fun little presentation, I'm going to tell you, we're going to deal with the eternal question. There's a question that has plagued mankind really for centuries, and that is, of course, does size matter? In the case of sparrows, we're talking about repertoire. In other words, how many songs does an individual bird sing? How many different types of songs can one individual sparrow, one individual sing? And the question then is, do the girls prefer the ones with the biggest repertoire? Now, there's some evidence for this. And of course, since probably the primary purpose of birdsong is to attract a mate as well as kind of repel other competitors, this is really what it's all about. You can say that the females are the ones that have sculpted birdsong because the males are singing mainly for the sake of the female. So what's important? And there is some evidence in a number of species that the bigger repertoire is valuable, that the males that have the biggest repertoire, the biggest variety of songs will get the best territories, the best mates, will reproduce more successfully. And one strategy of delivery that also argues that that's probably important is that a lot of birds, a lot of sparrows will sing their songs, their repertoire, with what's called immediate variety, meaning they will sing one of their songs and then they'll immediately sing a different one, then they'll immediately sing a different one, which makes sense if you're trying to impress a female with the size of your repertoire. You want to show what you can do in as quick a time as possible. So here's a good example. It's a bird I recorded up in the Sierra, green-tailed towhee, and this is the first song I recorded. And about 2 seconds later, it sang this song. Completely different. Then moved on and sang another song and another song. And after repeated about 5 or 6 songs, it started over again. Not in the same order, but again, it basically showed its repertoire as quickly as it could. But where one thing that sort of blows a hole in this as being a generally important theory that bigger repertoire is better, is that there's probably an equal number of sparrows that sing with what's called eventual variety, meaning they'll sing the same song over and over again and before they switch to one of their other songs. And a classic example is song sparrow. It's a bird I recorded at Grizzly Slough in the Bay Area, and it sang this song. And then it sang the same song. It sang that about 12 times, repeating it perfectly, exactly. And then I'm continuing to record because I want to hear another example. And then finally, it switches and it starts singing this song. And it'll sing it several times and then switch to another song. So if it's really important to show that you have a big repertoire, why would you not show it right away? So that kind of argues that maybe it isn't a generally true thing. And what really blows the hole in that as a general theory is that there are a whole lot of sparrows that get by with one song. They learn one song and that's all they ever sing their whole life, and yet they get by. So one example, we've been talking quite a bit about white-crowned sparrows. So here's an example. The white-crowned sparrow song. Each white-crowned sparrow will have a slightly different song, but this particular individual, once it learns that song, it's the only song it's ever going to sing in its whole life. And it will sing it over and over again. And somehow we still have white-crowned sparrows. So clearly it works. Clearly they're doing something. Another example is the chipping sparrow. That's its song. Just a really simple, seems like kind of a boring little trill, but again, that's all it sings. It'll sing that song the rest of its life and it manages to find a mate and reproduce. So other birds have a few. Black-chinned sparrows have exactly 2 songs in their repertoire and they almost always sing them back to back. So black-chinned sparrow, and in fact, this particular dialect is every California black-chinned sparrow. This is what they sing, these 2 songs. Song number 1, spotted towhee getting in on the act, and song number 2. Very subtle difference. You can see those initial notes. On the first song, they're up-slurred, start low and go up. On the second song, they start high and go low. It's the only difference, and that's all they'll sing. Other birds have a few, like casting sparrow. Song sparrow has quite a few. Some have a lot. Vesper sparrows have as many as 200 different songs in their repertoire. But what I really want to talk about is there's one sparrow that has so many songs in its repertoire that it's quite possible that a male lark sparrow could go through its entire life and never sing the same song twice. So how is that possible? I'm going to really get into this. This is the lark sparrow. Now, first thing we need to do, and I'm going to have to use, is not going to be useful for the Zoom people, but I want to explain a little bit about how a lark sparrow song is structured. So this is a basic example of a lark sparrow song. And what we're going to talk about is it's divided into what you could call syllables. And each syllable is composed of a particular kind of an element, a particular continuous note. So this is one syllable and it consists of the same note, the same element repeated 5 times. Here's one that has 2 repetitions. Here's one that has two different ones. So each one of these syllables is composed of an element. Okay. So how do you create this incredible variety with this basic structure? So here's what they do. First of all, each individual lark sparrow male has a vocabulary of different elements. And one particular vocabulary could have 10 to 15 different elements. Okay. And it structures those such that it will vary which elements it uses from one song to the next. So it'll change which elements it's using. And then on top of that, it'll change the order in which they're using those elements. And it will change the number of times they repeat a single element within a syllable. And on top of that, and this is something that I published on, and it was really exciting when I first discovered it. You'll be listening to these birds and they'll be singing a song, and they'll use their 10 or 12 different elements as they sing. This one in particular, I'm going to show you 10 or 15 times. And then bang, they'll switch to a completely new set of elements. And they never mix the two. It's like if you've ever been around a young child that's being raised bilingual, and maybe one parent speaks to them in Spanish and the other is English, when they really start talking, they're able to switch from English to Spanish and never mix the two up, go immediately. And that's kind of the same thing these lark sparrows do. If they're in vocabulary or theme number one, when they switch to two, they don't mix any of those in. So let me show you what this looks like in a real example. All right, bear with me. So what I've done here is I've labeled these just so you can see the syllable, the element types. So this is element A, and here in the next syllable, it's element B repeated twice. That's why I call it B2. And then I'm calling this element C, and here's element D, which is repeated 3 times. So this is an actual lark sparrow I recorded in the foothills in Amador County. And this is what it's saying the first time, using A, B, C, and D. And the next song right after that uses some of those same elements, but then mixes in some new ones. Right after that, it uses some of those, and then it throws in a few new ones. Got it to the point where it was, I think, 11 or 12 different elements. And I recorded this bird for a long time. And then bingo, it switches to a whole new set of elements. It sings this song. Now I've moved up in the alphabet here to incorporate each one of these is a different element, distinct from any of the ones you saw before. Next song uses some of those same elements, adds a few more. Another one. And then if you record it long enough, and this one thing that's great about lark sparrows, not only are they beautiful, but when they start singing in the breeding season, they will just sit there and sing and sing and sing and sing and sing from the same perch. So with this bird, you know, it had about 15 songs mixing element number group 1, and then it had about 12 songs with element group 2, and it went back to element 3. I found one example of a bird that has 3 completely different vocabularies. I ran out of the alphabet trying to keep track of all these different elements. So when you put all that together, you vary the elements between each song, the order they're used, the number in a syllable, and then you switch to a new theme of elements. You will come up with potentially well over 1 million different songs. And if you calculate the lifetime of a lark sparrow, you can easily see that an individual male lark sparrow might never sing the same song twice in its entire life. So if we answer the question, does size matter? And I think we've definitely said that the answer is yes and no. Yeah, question? No idea. Yeah, I'm sorry. So the question is if it's, yeah, how does a female distinguish between someone that has 1 million songs and someone that has 900,000? They probably don't. They couldn't listen long enough, because I'm going to get to some other aspects of singing which may not be about repertoire size, but may also somehow be about a way of a male showing off. We'll get to some of those examples. Size of repertoire for some species is probably important, where it's a little repertoire, like having 8 might be better than 5, and a female can tell that. But you're right, having 1.5 million versus 900,000, that's probably not important. So let's talk about, I promised you talk about imitation. There's at least one sparrow that commonly incorporates imitations of other birds into its song. And see if you can spot this. This actually is the subspecies of fox sparrow that we have breeding in California in the mountains, the thick-billed fox sparrow. So here's a song, and those of you who kind of know some bird song, listen and hear if you can hear an imitation in here. I think there are two in this one, but those notes right there, that sounds just like an American robin to me. That is an American robin. Listen to it again. Perfect American. They love to do robin. They love to do flicker. Bunch of other things that they incorporate a lot. I think in this one, there's also, I think another example here, this very last note here, this descending note, sounds to me like something I hear from red-winged blackbirds. Listen to this. To your kind of little, like running your thumb along the tines of a comb or something. Anyway. And I've had a few other examples. I think they're interesting. Okay, I also promised you a little magic. So behold the amazing syrinx. So birds don't have a larynx. You know, our larynx sits up on our throat, like in the trachea. Birds make their sound with what they call the syrinx, which actually sits right where the trachea divides into the two lungs. So what we have here is a set of muscles that can contract, both the muscles here and muscles along the side. And by contracting in different shapes and different sizes, you can create different notes. So that's great. That's how kind of a little bit the way our larynx works. But if you're a bird, you've got two sides and you've got two different sets of muscles, which means you can make two completely different sounds at the same time. Now, a lot of birds don't make much use of this, but some do. In particular, thrushes are really common. So a lot of the thrush songs that you hear, Swainson's thrush, hermit thrush, even robin to some extent, you'll hear this kind of, I don't know, self-harmony, echoey effect. And that's really because they're using two sides of their syrinx. They're harmonizing with themselves. Doesn't happen common in sparrows, but it's at least to some extent in rufous crowned sparrow. And I think almost every element of a Lincoln sparrow song shows what we call polyphony. So this is what polyphony means: two different sounds at exactly the same time. Let me show you a spectrogram example, and we'll get into a little more magical detail on this. All right, so here's the typical Lincoln sparrow song. And the way you can spot polyphony is that you see two very different traces, very different notes that overlap in time. So if you look here, you see here's a note down here. It's overlapping completely with this kind of buzzy note up here. And even down here, you see some overlap. You can see a little effect here. Here in particular, you've got some notes here and some lower notes, and they are overlapping. So that tells us that this bird is using one side of its syrinx for some of those notes and some of the others. And thanks to electronic magic, we can actually pull that apart. I'll show you what I mean. So let's listen to the song first. To hear that, I'm going to go backwards because I really think one of the ways you identify a Lincoln sparrow when you learn the song is it just sounds weird. And it's the polyphony that makes it sound weird. So let's listen again to this, all these notes. Kind of hear almost self-harmony going on. So let's look just at this set of notes, and we're going to pull it apart. So that's what it sounds like if you just listen to that part of the song. Now, when I hear that, I hear four notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you look at it, there's 12 notes there, right? There are 8 high-pitched notes and 4 low-pitched notes. But it's so fast that our ears, our sampling rate is not anything close to what a bird can do, that we really don't hear all those. So what I can do electronically is I can pull out just the high-pitched notes. So now we're going to listen to just what one side of that bird's syrinx is doing. And here's what it sounds like. Now you can hear it's a little trill. It's got a lot more than 4 notes in it. And now when I get rid of that and I look at just what's coming from the other side of the syrinx, 4 little low pitch notes, and you put them together, it sounds like that. I have no doubt that even though we can't really pull this apart very well, female birds can. And obviously this is a pretty good athletic trick, and you're going to see some more athletic tricks later. So, and again, there's even more, like in the Ronco commercials, but wait, there's more. Now, we looked at chipping sparrow and I sort of denigrated it, said, oh, this is kind of a boring little buzzy, unmusical song, but there's a whole lot more going on here than meets the eye. And right away you say, well, it isn't just a trill. Look at this. There's actually some high pitched notes and some lower pitched notes. But it sounds like basically one trill. Now, if we dig in here a little closer, it's going to be hard to tell even Meg. So that's what the bird sounds like in regular speed. If you look really closely, and it's hard to tell even at this is not polyphony. These notes, the higher pitch notes, the lower pitch notes are not overlapping, okay? They're not overlapping, but they are impossibly close together. They are just a few milliseconds apart. So there is it is physiologically impossible for a set of muscles to contract, relax, and contract again that fast. So it tells you again, they must be using both sides of the syrinx, one to make the high pitched notes, one to make the low, but they're doing it in a way that it comes across really fast. So we can't hear this because our brain's sampling rate on sound is just too slow to pick it up. So if I lower this to 1/3 the speed, now I think you're hearing what a female chipping sparrow hears. So listen. And you can hear it. It's a high-pitched note and a low-pitched note, alternating back and forth. Isn't that cool? I just love this stuff. So again, this is what a female really wants to know is the good, healthy, vibrant male whose genes I want passed on to my young. And these are athletic things these birds are doing. And so I think it's probably is maybe even an honest indicator of the shape that I can do this. I can put these notes so close together that it's just that, humans can't even tell them apart. Okay, finally, almost done. There's one way where a bird with a small one, repertoire, can still impress the ladies. This was going to be a little bit more subtle to pick out, but we're going to be back to the white-crowned sparrow. So again, as I said, white-crowned sparrows, single song type. So here's a white-crowned sparrow. This is one of the mountain subspecies, the Oriantha. Pretty little song. And this is a bird that I record in the Sierra. And again, it only sings one song. And so I recorded several versions, probably 10 or 12 versions of this song, the same bird singing this song. And then I asked myself, boy, they sound exactly alike. And I look at the spectrogram, they look really similar. So I wonder if I was to take randomly the first song and whatever, the fourth or fifth song, and overlay them, how perfectly is this bird reproducing that song over and over again? So this is going to be pretty subtle to watch. So I want you to watch this. First we're going to listen. That's what it sounds like. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to advance the slide, and you're going to see the first song. And then when I advance the slide again, you're going to see a gradual overlay of the fourth song on top of the first song, and see if you can see any difference as one fades out, the other fades in. So, and probably the best way, the only place I can be able, is if you look at these last four notes, look there really carefully, you might see a really subtle difference. So. I'm going to do it again, okay? So there's the first one. Did you see the last four notes change very, very subtly? So you can do this with any one of the songs, and I've done it with fox sparrow songs and other songs. Think about what this takes. That is a complex, rapid set of muscular contractions, a complex set of movements, and it's repeating them perfectly over and over and over again. If I could do that, I could make 1,000 out of 1,000 free throws, right? So it's just a set of muscular activity. Do the same thing every time. Hoop's the same size, the distance is the same. I can't do that. Probably you can't do that. And these birds can do that. So I think it's probably another way that if you only have a one-song repertoire, you can show something about your fitness, that I can reproduce this song. It's my only song, but boy, I can do it over and over again, and it sounds exactly the same. So have we finally answered the question? I think, yeah, we have. That the answer is, does size matter? And it's not how big it is, it's how you use it. Thank you very much. Well, we're running late, but I can take some questions if people don't mind.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ed and Ed. This was wonderful. I hope everybody never uses little brown job or whatever ever again, and we think about sparrows differently. All right, let's take let's take some questions if you don't mind. We have it's 8:18, so we have 12 minutes.
Our car turns into a pumpkin at 10 because the garage. We'll have to spend the night in San Francisco.
Yeah, I don't know what Google will do to us if we stay past 8:30.
Well, it doesn't always.
Can I get you guys to come to the
Yeah.
mic? I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, because I'm forgetting about the Zoom people. So the question was about Merlin. How does Merlin identify, especially when individual, birds have a lot of different songs? Well, first of all, for those of you who use Merlin, how many people have used Merlin, the app, free app? Oh, God, almost everybody. You're scaring me. Merlin is an amazing tool. I was actually one of the people, there's a lot of birders like me who actually were Merlin's tutors. So we took spectrograms and we'd block out areas, say, this is this species, this is that. And that was how initially Merlin was taught. But Merlin also makes lots and lots of mistakes. I use Merlin just mostly for fun when I go out, and almost every time it'll hear something, it'll say, boy, that's really amazing. I really got it. And then it'll be one or two birds that, no, that bird is not here. It's misidentified. So it's not perfect. Be careful. If you want to get your eBird list rejected, the best thing to do is to say Merlin identified the bird, because the eBird editor will say, yeah, down with that one. But yeah, and Merlin's getting better and better and better. But first of all, so the way it was done, it was just kind of brute force. So in other words, I did, I did a fox sparrow, I think, fox sparrow songs. And so I looked at, 75 different fox sparrow songs from all over, and I bracketed them and taught Merlin, this is what a fox sparrow song sounds like. But obviously that's not going to be perfect, but it's the same thing you do as a birder, as you're learning. So song sparrows sing all these different songs, but you get to a point after you've heard enough song sparrows that you find a hook. And Merlin is not as good as people at that. And so, but it needs to see something that it's been taught to see that's the song. But again, they keep doing more AI built on it. It's getting better and better. But yeah, that definitely is a useful tool, but a shortcoming, and a really difficult thing for it to do is really to get all that down, and it's never going to be perfect. And one of the things to do, I'm getting too much into Merlin, but because I'm an eBird editor, it gets to be a pet peeve. If you come up with a bird and you see there's a little red or orange dot next to it, be careful. Because that red or orange dot, which unfortunately is a little too subtle in Merlin, tells you, this bird is not real common here. Maybe you should think twice about this. So at least use that. Anyway, more questions.
We have
Oh.
a question in the chat. If you repeat it after
You want to just read it up here
Sure, I'll
through the
just read it up
microphone?
here. So we have a question. We have a question here from the chat, from Donna. Let me see it. She asks, Eds, do any of the females of these sparrow species sing?
It turns out, not too many years ago, people would have said, oh no, female birds don't sing, but it's completely untrue. In fact, as we look more closely, finding more and more species where the birds sing. I don't know, do you know of a female sparrow that sings? I don't know of a species. A lot of finches, a lot of the grosbeaks and things like that, Lasley bunting, rosebreast or grosbeak, those the females that sing. Do you know of any female sparrows that sing?
I don't recall any sparrow that does that, but I can think of things like great horned owls that will actually duet Both male and female will do it. And there's a lot of birds in the tropics that will do duetting as well. Both male and female singing together. The male starts and the female finishes. It's a beautiful thing to hear.
And one thing you can do, there's, I can't remember her name right now, but there's a woman who's really championed. Of course, a woman has said, let's look at the females. Guess what? They sing. She actually has a website, which I think is called, I think if you just Google, he sings, she sings, she's putting together a longer and longer list. And I haven't gone there recently to see if there's sparrows, but this probably is a sparrow somewhere on the list. But yeah, most of the time, female song is a little quieter and less complex than male song. Sometimes it's fairly similar. Sometimes it's very different. But again, like, the duetting that Ed was talking about. There's a little, if you're ever out listening to Western meadowlarks, you'll very often, you hear the Western meadowlark, that beautiful little song, and then you'll hear this trill right at the end, often overlapping with the end. That trill is the female duetting. Sounds like one song, but the trill is actually the female. We have time for any more? Another question? Yep, here's one.
I assume they go more towards the Sierras and work their way up to Alaska. And they came back. So I'm kind of like complimenting what happened with that. So is it common for the white crown and blue crowns to hang together? With any other sparrows that kind of?
Well, they're both common sparrows, so there's a good likelihood that they could be together, but they will probably be used in a little different habitat. Like the golden crown sparrow is going to be very happy with grasses, and the white crown is going to be looking for seeds. And they can be side by shoulder to shoulder and both not being aggressive towards one another because they're going after a different food source.
And I'll always be careful. Like you talked about migration, about how they might migrate. Boy, we're learning a lot about migration, and almost everything we learn has turned what we assumed that the birds are doing upside down. So yeah, like, so for instance, there are not very many anymore. There are ruby crowned kinglets that breed up in the Sierra. And we have zillions of ruby crowned kinglets that winter. So you would think, well, gee, the ones that are in the Sierra are migrating down here for winter. No, every wintering ruby crown, we proved this with dialect, every wintering ruby crowned sparrow that I've ever recorded is a bird that bred in interior of Alaska. And we see this all over, same sort of thing. So we have fox sparrows that breed in the Sierra. They don't come down here for the winter. They go down to like Baja in Southern California. And the ones that fox sparrows that do come here for the winter are coming from Alaska. So birds do crazy things. And now that we're using all these tagging technologies, we're finding out. I give another presentation, which is called Bird Migration. The more we learn, the less we know. And that's really what it's been about. It's been fascinating how many things birds are doing that we would never have guessed. All right.
Yeah, there's one more chat questions about the singing. The question is, do different species duet together?
Do different species duet together? I don't know of an example. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like most different species kind of ignore each other. Now, different males in adjacent territories will do what they call counter singing. And it's usually if they're both established on their territories, they'll counter sing in kind of a back and forth way that says, this is me, I'm still here. And the other one says, this is me, I'm still here, we're okay. And then sometimes you'll hear them, they'll be counter singing where they'll overlap each other. And in most cases, that means this is a male that I don't recognize. And it almost like they're dueling with it. But boy, I don't know of any examples between two different species that seem to deliberately duet or even counter sing.
Not quite on the same note, but an interesting study with hooded warblers showed that, yes, they do return to exactly the same place where they nested the year before. They can, I lose my car keys regularly, but they can find that same little geographical spot. But they found out that when they come back to these geographical spots, that their songs are recognized by the neighbors as well. And so the biologists started taking some of the songs, recording the songs of some of the neighbors, and walking into these territories held by these other birds that had declared that as their territory, and it caused all kinds of pandemonium. So, but amazing that they come back, they've been gone for 6 months or so, and they come back and they recognize their neighbors again. Fascinating to know that a bird can actually do that, recognize your previous neighbor from, half a year ago when they were there. So coming back to the same spot, boggles my mind, but then to recognize your neighbor's song is even more unbelievable. It's just incredible.
Yeah, and that actually points out another, I kind of made a point partly for the sake of humor that male bird song is all about attracting females, but equally important is deterring other males. So these same characteristics that the birds might be trying to project through their songs are directed for the female, but they're also directed to let other males that know I'm really healthy and in good shape, and you better not mess around and try to steal my territory. So it's always more complicated than we make it. Anyway, we should probably let everybody go. Thanks for staying so late. Thanks for inviting us.